All right, welcome to Mac Group. Today we're going to talk about Adobe Creative Cloud. And what I thought I'd do is something I normally don't do. I normally don't start my Adobe presentations with a slideshow. But since Creative Cloud is such a huge shift for the company, and of course, huge shift for a lot of customers, I thought I would take the opportunity to explain some of the rationale behind Creative Cloud, benefits, dispel some of the myths, and talk about a lot of the reasons or answer some of the questions that people have. So with that, I'm going to spend the first few minutes doing that part, and then we'll get into the demo of the actual products. So first of all, many of you know Adobe for its long history in creating creative tools. Matter of fact, world-class creative tools in most people's opinions, the best of class creative tools. Whether you're a Photoshop user as a photographer, a designer using Illustrator or InDesign, or a web professional using Dreamweaver and Fireworks, or a videographer using Premiere and After Effects. We've always had a good long standing of creating desktop applications. However, as a company, we look at not only what our current users' needs are, but what our future needs are, or what their future needs are. And when we look out over the landscape, we notice that people are no longer just doing things on their desktop computers. Of course, people traditionally, artists still sketch, they still do it by hand, they still do it on paper. But more and more, people are doing things not just on paper and just on desktop computers, but also on mobile devices. And they're no longer just working at home, or they're no longer just working in the studio, they're working out and about. And as we continue to see the trends move, even as Apple likes to say, the post-PC era or away from the desktop, we look at the way we have traditionally made our software and what we need to do going forward. So it's no longer at Adobe just about the desktop apps. And as the apps and services change, or the world's needs change, so must the apps and services that we used to create. So with that, a year ago, we launched Creative Cloud. Creative Cloud launched May 2012. And the idea was that users would no longer have to wait the traditional 18 to 24 months for products to be updated. And if you think about the suite model, which we went through six revs of the suite, Creative Suite, CS2, CS3, CS4, CS5, CS6, those upgrade cycles were traditionally 18, 24 months. And of course, the idea was all the products get upgraded at the same time with all their new features. Well, let's go back 2 years prior to last year, 2010. In 2010, CS5 came out. And CS5 came out a month before the iPad, right around, within weeks of each other. And of course, the iPad was a total surprise to everyone, including us. We got no special preference or briefing on that. It was announced, and we saw it, and so did everyone else. And of course, as our big publishers saw it, they saw it as an opportunity, and especially saw how fast it was taking off, that they would be able to put their digital publications on it. They'd be able to make magazines for the iPad. So of course, since they were using our software, they came to us and said, Wired Magazine was one of the first. We want to be on the iPad. Help us get there. And of course, we had just shipped CS5. There was no thing in the wings waiting to help them. We had to do that first issue of Wired by hand, programming, building the entire thing from scratch for the first time. And it was a success. Everyone looked at it and said, oh my God, this is the way a magazine should be, with tweaks, of course. And every magazine publisher came to us and said, we want to do this too, but we don't have the time or bandwidth to hand code everyone's magazine. But imagine had we said, you have to wait till CS6. Imagine if we would have said back then, sorry, we just shipped CS5, you've got to wait for your magazine for 2 years. How would that have gone over? No customer wants to hear that. When they're ready to do something now, they're ready to do it now. So that taught us a lesson that as this technology changes, we can't just sit back and do the same thing we always did, because things change too fast. So the idea behind Creative Cloud was that users that would join Creative Cloud would no longer have to wait that traditional 18 to 24-month cycle. As soon as a feature in a product is ready, that feature becomes available. And as a Creative Cloud member, since you're doing a monthly membership as opposed to an 18, 24-month upgrade cycle, you just get the new features when they're ready. You don't have to wait for those upgrades, and you don't have to pay for them every time they come out. So the initial offering in May 2012 was, of course, all of the CS6 applications that were out at the time, Acrobat 10, Muse, which had been a public beta, became 1.0, Edge Animate, which was put in as a preview, Business Catalyst, which is our web hosting, and Typekit, which we had just acquired Typekit, which traditionally had been doing web fonts, and we're going to talk more about fonts in a moment. But that was May. So what happened right after May? Well, from June to October, we added more. Lightroom, which had never been a part of the suite, it had always been a separate product, was added to Creative Cloud. So members of Creative Cloud, 1 month later, just download and install Lightroom without having to buy it or pay extra for it. Muse got new features, which Muse had already been a subscription product, so it was used to getting new features as quickly as they were available, so it got new features right off the bat. Illustrator got new features for the first time since Illustrator 10. New features with, what I mean, not new features only, but new features without having to wait for the rest of the applications since CS10. So Illustrator got new packaging features, new layering features, new, linking features. And again, it didn't have to wait for Photoshop, didn't have to wait for InDesign, didn't have to wait 18 months. It just, they were ready, they got put in. Digital Publishing Suite, single edition. So we talked about the magazine production. The single edition version of DPS before Creative Cloud was $395 for one app. If you wanted to build one app, you would go to adobe.com, pay for a license for $395 to build your one app. If you want to build a second app tomorrow, another $395. That got turned on for Creative Cloud members for unlimited app creation at no additional cost. So no more $395, no more anything. If you want to create an app every day, you could. So tremendous value there. Dreamweaver got new features, again, without having to wait for the rest of the web tools to be ready. Edge tools and services, we added more Edge applications, and Acrobat 11 came out. Now let's talk about Acrobat for a second. Acrobat was never on the same upgrade cycle as Creative Suite. It always was 1 year off or one version off. So whenever Acrobat came out, even if you had it as part of your suite, if you wanted the new version, you paid the upgrade price for it, which was about 133 bucks to get Acrobat. And if you didn't want to pay for it then, you waited till your next suite upgrade and you paid for the whole thing at that point. And of course, Acrobat would then be a year old. So Acrobat 11 came out at that time. Creative Cloud members just download it and install it. Nothing extra to do. December was a huge update for us. This time around, Photoshop got new features. It also got the Retina display support for CS6 and CC, CS6 and Creative Cloud, but it also got new features beyond just the Retina support. Muse got more new features. We introduced a whole bunch of gaming developer tools. We released Creative Cloud for teams and enterprises, because again, one size doesn't fit all. And desktop sync preview for syncing files on your desktop. That was a beta that we released, as well as the new Creative Cloud Learning Center. So people that were traditionally paying for a lynda.com account or a Kelby training account, those providers were now providing training for Creative Cloud members. So it's not we're competing with them, we're getting their training as part of the Creative Cloud membership. All right, January to April, right after the first of the year. Edge Reflow, a brand new product, got put into Creative Cloud. Edge Animate got new features. Dreamweaver got more new features. Muse got more new features. And Behance, which is the world's largest creative community, got integrated into Creative Cloud. So for 1 year, most of the major applications got new features without having to wait for their counterparts to get new features, and without Creative Cloud members having to do anything extra other than download those updates when they were ready. But May 6th, that was the big one. Because although the other applications had been getting new features along the way, some of the applications were working on bigger things, or some of the teams were working on bigger things, and those all got announced on May 6th and shipped or were released on June 17th. I have to stop using the word shipped. So we don't ship boxes anymore. But they were released on June 17th. And of course, Photoshop, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, Fireworks, Flash, Audition, After Effects, Premiere, Muse, Lightroom, SpeedGrade, InDesign, and InCopy. Again, InCopy had always been a separate product. If you were into editorial and you needed InCopy, you'd pay separately for that. And now that's part of Creative Cloud as well. So Creative Cloud updates will continue. And not to say that we won't ever do a massive update like we just did this time with all the applications again, but we won't have to wait anymore for that to happen. So we'll continue to see updates that way. Now, let's talk about going forward. This is what people know and love about Adobe, the desktop apps. And again, having used them for years and years and years, people use whichever ones they need, and they have been used to using those apps for their projects. But the CC apps, which by the way, they've been rebranded, they're no longer CS, they're now CC for Creative Cloud. The CC apps are only part of the story now. Still an important part, still a large part, but only part. So with that, what else is there? So the CC apps make up part of Creative Cloud. But as of June 17th, we started integrating the apps themselves into the cloud, meaning that for example, if I'm running Photoshop on my desktop computer and I start creating a bunch of presets and workspaces and change a bunch of settings, when I get to my laptop, I don't want to have to do that all over again and remember what I did. So now those settings are able to sync with Creative Cloud from each application. You go from one computer to the next, all your presets, workspaces, colors are all there. Collaboration. This is one that we had hoped to deliver on June 17th, but it wasn't quite ready, so it's in the coming soon category, where that is technically folder sharing. The ability to share your Creative Cloud folders with others and have them collaborate by having access to that folder and putting things in the folder and making changes to what's in the folder. So think of it like the Dropbox shared folder today. Community, the Behance community, like I said, we acquired them late last year. And now products have been set up to be integrated with Behance. So for example, from Photoshop CC and Illustrator CC, I'm working on a file. I want to get feedback from the people that follow me on Behance or get constructive criticism. I can now publish that work directly from Photoshop, directly from Illustrator to my Behance account as a work in progress. If I make iterations to it, make changes to it, and then it automatically makes iterations to it from those apps.
Can you explain what Behance is?
I'm going to. Yeah. When we get to the demo part, you'll actually see it. Now, Behance was always like a social network for creatives, a free part of the service, but Behance had a paid portion as well. It was the Behance Pro site or portfolio. Now, a lot of people have a professional portfolio up online, and they may be hosting it or paying for a separate portfolio or whatever. And even if you were Behance, that was $100 a year to have a pro site. Of course, since it got acquired by Adobe and became part of Creative Cloud, the $100 a year fee goes away. Creative Cloud members get to create pro sites whenever they want. And last but not least, publishing out the apps. So we have various ways from the Creative Cloud applications to create apps. So I talked about DPS, Digital Publishing Suite. That's one of the ways. We have PhoneGap and Dreamweaver and a couple other ways using Flash and other technologies. So when you look at that, that is the direction we're headed in. It's no longer just about the desktop apps anymore. It's about the apps themselves, of course, being important, but also integrating wherever possible into the cloud, making it easier to work not only across your devices, but across your clients' devices as well. So with that, there are different plans for Creative Cloud. Last year when we introduced it, there was only one plan available, the individual plan. And that was the $49 a month, get access to everything, get 20 gigs of cloud storage, publish an unlimited number of iPad apps, and web hosting for up to 5 websites. In December, we introduced Teams and Enterprise. So think of Teams as Creative Cloud for a small company or a small group of individuals where you don't want to have to pay for it separately on every single machine with separate credit cards or whatever. You can have a team administrator that sets up one account, administers it for the whole team, turns it on and off for team members as they come and go. And of course, enterprises would be the larger companies with hundreds of computers or thousands of computers that want to do Creative Cloud. And of course, different pricing for enterprise depending on the size of the company. And last but not least, government and education. So education has its own special pricing as well as government. So with that, I get asked this question all the time. Well, I just don't want to rent my apps. I just don't want to pay a monthly fee for using apps that I used to buy and own. And then by the way, if you're just adamantly opposed to renting or paying a monthly fee, there's really not much I can do. That's what you're adamantly opposed to. This is the direction we're going in. There's nothing I can do about that. But what I normally start to do is have a conversation with the person and say, okay, do you pay for web hosting? Well, yeah. Do you pay for online storage? Well, yeah, I have a Dropbox account. Do you pay for this? Do you pay for that? And then once we start adding up the things that they're already paying for, and I start exposing those same exact things in Creative Cloud that are included, then Creative Cloud starts to make more sense to some people. Not everyone, but some. So I put together this slide. This is my own personal one that I put together to just break down those costs. So let's look at what we really get. Starting with storage. 20 gigs of storage, I'll be the first to say, is not a lot. I wish it were more, but that is the offering today. So 20 gigs of storage, the closest I can compare it to for paid storage would be Google Drive and Dropbox. But they don't start at 20, they start at 100. So when I looked at those costs, I said, okay, if I'm going to put a dollar value on 20 gigs of storage, best I could do is $1. It's about what it's worth. $1 a month. Because Google Drive will give you 100 gigs for $5 a month. So 1/5 of that would be $1. And by the way, Dropbox is $10 a month for the 100 gigs. Learning content. This is one that's often overlooked. And I ask those same people, well, do you pay for a lynda.com account? Do you pay for a Kelby training account? Yes. How much is that? $25 a month. Okay. Well, let's look at it this way. Lynda, last time I checked, had over 1,800 courses. We don't have anywhere near that many. So, what do I value this at? $1 in its current state. Because lynda.com and Kelby Training is $25 a month and they have way more courses. Now, they're providing the content, they just haven't provided 1,800 classes for us yet. So, $2 so far a month. Business Catalyst. Web hosting. If you're going to have a business, you're going to have a web hosting, you're going to pay that bill one way or another. You might pay it all at once, annually, might get a discount, but whatever. The average price for web hosting is about $5 a month. Okay? Bluehost.com, for example, is $5 a month, whether you pay it annually or not. Behance Pro Site. Most professionals have a professional portfolio online. Behance used to cost $100 a year, but let's take the closest competitor. The closest competitor is Squarespace. That's the one everyone's really liking these days. Squarespace is $8 a month. And Pro Site's no better, no worse. It's about the same. All right. Typekit fonts. Another one that's often overlooked. The Typekit library that comes with Creative Cloud is 175, well, first of all, it's over 400 web fonts. I'm not counting those. I'm talking about the ones you would use for print. 175 families of fonts valued at over $25,000. It's part of your Creative Cloud membership. Again, often overlooked. But let's look at the closest thing I could find to it. Closest thing I could find to it is fonts.com. They charge $10 a month for web fonts. It doesn't include desktop fonts at all. If you want 5 desktop fonts, 5, not 175, 5, it's $40 a month. If you want unlimited desktop fonts, it's $100 a month. So we're giving you 175 families as part of your membership. Story. Now, Story is our script writing tool. And this one will only appeal to people in the video world, people that are writing scripts. And there isn't a competitor in the shared script writing collaboration space online. The closest thing, the closest competitor I could find is Final Draft. And Final Draft is a standalone product. It's $249. So I figured if you bought it and used it for 2 straight years without ever paying for an upgrade, I just divided it by 24. But really, to equal what Story CC could do, you would need both Final Draft and Movie Magic, which is another $249. I'm not even counting Movie Magic. I'm just counting Final Draft. All right, DPSSE. This was the hardest one because, again, there's nothing like it. There isn't a service out there that lets you create an unlimited number of apps. Really only one. So the closest thing I could find is what we used to do, which is one app for $395. And I said, well, what if you only did one app a year? That would be $32.91 a month, just to do one. The closest competitor is Mag Plus, and they're $1,000 per app. So if you want to do 2, it's $2,000. We're letting you do an unlimited number for the same monthly price. So if you add this up, $68.29 a month just for the value of the services, which I tended to go way on the low end. $1 here, $5 here, so forth and so on. So if that's the way you like to look at things, then the apps are free. I'm making light of it, but that's sometimes people need to understand it from the standpoint of you value paying monthly for services with no problem. You just don't want to rent your apps. Then look at the services. And maybe that'll help make the decision for you. And I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone, but if you look at it this way, then it helps you understand what you're really getting. All right. Let's talk about the myths. When people hear Creative Cloud, they think, oh, well then I don't want to run my apps in a browser. Neither do I. So your desktop apps are still your desktop apps. They install on your hard drive, as they always did. So even though they're called Creative Cloud, Photoshop, Creative Cloud, InDesign, Illustrator, they're still installed on your hard drive. And they can run right alongside your previous versions. We don't uninstall anything. We don't deactivate anything. If you still have CS6, CS5, CS4, CS3, you still keep them. We're not turning anything off. Well, then even if they're connected to or they're installed on the hard drive, have to be connected to the internet all the time to run them, right? No. When Creative Cloud first came out, it had to check in every 30 days. And we changed that on May 6th, that if you have an annual commitment, then it only has to do it every 99 days. And that handles the vast majority of people, because the vast majority of people are not offline for more than 3 months at a time. Most people aren't. There are some. I still hear people, there's always one that raises their hand, I'm going to Cambodia, I'm going to be offline for 6 months. Then in that case, call customer service before you leave. So 99 days for everyone else. Well, I can't use it because my enterprise doesn't allow file storage outside the firewall. Well, if you're an individual, then that's not a problem. If you're a team or an enterprise person, then you get the team and enterprise management tool, where your team administrator can go in and turn on and off specific services that they don't want the enterprise to use or team members to use. So they can control what they don't want. Well, I can't share files with my client if they're not a Creative Cloud member. Untrue. With the website, whatever files you put in your Creative Cloud storage can be shared with others, The others that you're sharing it with don't have to be Creative Cloud members, don't have to know what Adobe is, don't have to know what your products are, don't have to have anything installed. Simply a web browser and the link that you give them to go look at your files, make comments, download the files. Now, if you let them download, then they would need the software to open it up. But if they just want to look at it, make comments on it, review it, thumb through it, they can do that in a web browser. And we'll see an example of that. My IT department doesn't want things to be installed automatically, and I'm not take the IT department out of it. I don't want things to be installed automatically. If I'm in the middle of a project, let's say an InDesign project, I don't want the file format changing until I'm done. So just like before, you update whenever you click the button. Nothing is updated automatically. When you're ready to install that new version of whatever, it will announce it and say you have updates waiting, just like it does today, and you click the update button when you're ready, not before then. Well, I can't afford this. I only use one application. I don't need all of that other stuff. I hear this primarily from photographers and hobbyists, people that only may use Photoshop or only may use InDesign or only may use Illustrator. So $50 a month is a lot for one application. That's why we have a single application membership. That's less. And for the first year, if you were on CS3 to CS6, it's only $9.99 a month for the first year before it goes up to the 20. And by the way, if you're on CS3 to CS6, your first year of regular Creative Cloud could be as low as $19 a month if you're on CS6, but if you're on CS5 on down, then it's $29 a month for the first year, $29.99. So, busting through the myths, the value proposition is work smarter with access to all of the creative apps for one monthly price and having updates as soon as they're available without ever having to save up money for the upgrade fee. Manage the creative process with your clients and colleagues, and of course, learning content to learn the new apps and services built right in. So let's take a look at how this all works. First thing I'm going to do is head to the web browser, because this is where most people will start. Once you sign up for Creative Cloud, you get a one-time serial number that you enter in, and once you activate that, then you're headed to this spot. Now it's showing me my Creative Cloud files that I have put into my storage. Yours is going to be empty because you haven't put anything in there yet. But at the very top, you have Files, Download Center, Learn, and actually that's it. So let's go to Download Center. Now the Download Center is where most people are going to start because they're going to sign up for Creative Cloud and then they're going to want to go download some apps. So this is your candy store. This is access to all of the applications, if you have a full membership, that you can pick and choose what to download whenever you want. So if you want to use Illustrator today, click Download for Illustrator. You'll be given the opportunity to learn more about what Illustrator is before you download it. And for the first time, since you're a Creative Cloud member, you also have access to previous versions. So if for compatibility's sake or you want to install it on some older computer or whatever, you need to install the older version. You can go grab the older version and install it without having to have the latest version. The other thing before I forget is that this is cross-platform. So the question I normally get is, how many computers can you install it on? Well, that hasn't changed. It's always been 2. It still is 2. But now, for the first time, you don't have to buy the Mac version and the Windows version.
Tell them thank you.
You're welcome. You install it on a Mac, you install it on a PC, 2 Macs, 2 PCs, a Mac, and a PC. Up to you. We don't care what the 2 computers are.
Can you actually install on more computers but deactivate?
That's a good question. So can I install it on more than that and just deactivate it on the ones I'm not using when I need? Funny you should ask that, because I've done it. I installed it on 3, because I wanted to see what would happen, first of all, and actually I really wasn't thinking about it, until I went to go launch it on the 3rd computer. And when I launched it on the 3rd computer, a message comes up, hey, you've already installed this on 2 computers. So what do you think my button choices were? I was expecting things like that. Deactivate, quit, cancel, whatever. You know what the only choice was? Okay.
Okay.
That was it. Okay. Click OK and the software launched. Because now behind the scenes, we're already automatically deactivating on one of the other computers. You don't have to ever manage that process again. So yes, you can end up having it installed on multiple computers, and it will just deactivate it and reactivate it as needed on the computers you're launching it on. You can't choose. Unless you go do it first. You can go manually say deactivate, and then you are choosing at that point. But if you had to do it automatically, it'll just do it. And then the next time you go to launch it on a deactivated computer, it's going to say, hey, you've already launched this on 2 computers. Okay. And then it's going to deactivate on one of the other ones. So it's going to keep it on 2 computers at once, but you don't have to manage that process unless you want to.
Using AutoCAD terms, am I getting 2 seats?
No. You are getting 2 installs, 1 person. So it's not me and a loved one using it at the same time. It's Terry's laptop and desktop, or 2 laptops or 2 desktops or whatever, that I'm only on one at a time.
In the event of a crash, what happens?
Go reinstall it.
But I've already installed my 2.
And it's going to say, okay.
Okay, I'm having a hard time.
I know. I noticed. So you crashed. It's going to say, okay.
All right, cool. Thank you.
All right. So let's say I decide Illustrator's the one. I click download, and it takes me to the brand new Creative Cloud app, desktop app. Now, the desktop app, unlike the old application manager or old installers where you would have to, every application install, put in a serial number, it's tied into your Adobe ID. You log in once, you're done. So it's telling me all the apps that I have installed, whether they're up to date or not, and I can still click to choose to install anything I haven't already installed. While we're here, let's take a tour of the desktop app. So first thing is I can tear it off and make it a separate window. The first tab is my home feed. My home feed is just showing me activity on my account. So it's showing me people that have started following me and appreciating my work on Behance. It's showing me, if I scroll down far enough, I get lots of activity on Behance. It's showing me that I've updated my Creative Cloud desktop app 6 days ago. And if I scroll down far enough, it'll start showing me where I've installed things or updated things. So it's just keeping a constant track of things I've been doing on Creative Cloud. Now, the apps section we just looked at. So this is where you will go pick and choose which apps you want. If you don't want to do it from the website, you can do it here. And these 2 areas, these next 2 are in the coming soon category. The file syncing, which again, we wanted to have ready on June 17th, but it wasn't yet. As soon as it's ready, this will be turned on. And this will give you that local desktop folder called Creative Cloud Files that you will drag things into if you want or not. And those will get synced up to Creative Cloud, be available on all your devices, and be able to share them, so forth and so on. I'm going to show you the way to use your storage in the meantime without that folder. But that's where you would access the folder or the website from here. This is the fonts area. So this is where you will be able to go choose those 175 font families and click to install and sync to your both your computers, whichever ones you want. Yes?
Are those also downloaded to the computer?
Those are also downloaded to the computer. So yes, you'll be able to use them offline and use them now. And by the way, I even have my own myths and misconceptions. I thought Typekit fonts, the way we're going to do this, that they would install in your CC apps. Like they would only be available for your Creative Cloud apps. They're fonts. I brought up TextEdit and started typing in one of the desktop fonts I synced. So they're fonts. They're not just for your CC apps. They're for any app that can use fonts. Quickly.
Are the web fonts in that? Or
No, your web fonts are built into the web apps. So the web fonts are built into Muse and Dreamweaver. All right, this is just desktop fonts. Behance, so I had the question earlier, well, what is Behance? Never heard of it. And I'll be honest, before we acquired them, I'd never heard of it. Behance, I'm told, has over 1.4 million users. It's the world's largest creative community. I'm Sorry, I overlooked it, missed it, never knew it was there. But now I'm actually liking it. What Behance is if you think of Facebook for just being social networking and Twitter being for regular social networking with just anybody, think of Behance as a specific social network for creatives, photographers and videographers and graphic designers and just anyone creating, musicians. And what this allows me to do is, first of all, from the panel, I can see my activity. So these are people I'm following. So I'm following Russell Brown, and Russell Brown just created some portfolio images, and he's got 86 appreciations on them, so they must be pretty good. I can see work that's being appreciated by people I follow, even though I'm not following this person. And I can at any time click on any one of these and be taken right to the website to that project to look at it further. Now I can also see what's going on with my work. So these are projects that I have posted, and I can see how many views I've had, how many appreciations I've had, so forth and so on. If I go to my work in progress is the work that I'm actually asking for feedback on. So if I go to work in progress, I can see the ones that I posted and that they have comments waiting for me that I can go look at and see what the comments are. So this is, I posted something, hey guys, take a look at it, give me feedback, what do you think? And I can go see what that feedback is. And most importantly, I can discover new work. So these are the most appreciated artists at any given time and what they posted. And if I see something I like, I can go click on it and drill down and see it further. So for example, I click on this. It'll take me right to it in the Behance site. I can go look at, oh, so this is actually videos. I can play these videos, I can see the artwork. And if I really like it, when I get down to the bottom of this particular project, it's a lot of work here. I can actually say, I appreciate it. So now he got one more thumbs up. If I really like this artist's works, then I can follow that artist right here. And now I'll start getting notifications whenever they post new things. So I encourage you, whether you're going to be a Creative Cloud member or not, if you're a creative, join Behance. It's fun. And by the way, job listings for people that are looking for work or looking for freelance work, the job list is constantly updated with job postings. So people that are looking for work in their respective fields can find it quickly here. But that's Behance, that's what it is. So let's go back to the desktop app. And actually let's repin it back to the menu bar. And now let's take a look at, let's go back to the files. Actually, so we looked at, this is where you go to download apps. The learning content. On June 17th, we put 200 new videos on here. There were already, I forgot how many, but there were already some on there to begin with. And these videos, again, are coming from a variety of different sources. They're coming from lynda.com, they're coming from Kelvin Training, they're coming from Adobe employees such as myself, and they are Train Simple in this case. Let's see who this one is. This one's from Adobe TV, this one's from Lynda. So I'm getting the same value of content, meaning the same providers that I look up to, providing me exclusive training here that I can go use anytime I want. Okay, so that's just in a nutshell what the three areas are. Let's go back to files for a moment. And let's take a look at what I'm seeing here. So I'm seeing folders that I put into my Creative Cloud space. I'm seeing images, but I'm also seeing file types that I'm not used to seeing. I'm seeing an Illustrator file that I can actually see on the web and click on it. I'm seeing an InDesign file that I can actually see on the web and click on it. So if I click on this InDesign file, I'm actually able to thumb through the pages in a web browser without having to have InDesign installed on this machine, without having to have anything installed on this machine other than the internet connection. If I decide to now share this InDesign document with others, I can do share. By the way, I could post it directly to Behance from here, or I can just say send link. All files are private by default, so I'm saying make this one public to anyone who knows the link, allow comments or not, allow downloading or not. Pick and choose which ones you want. So I'm just allowing comments. So I can say, type in the email address that I want to have this sent to, or I can say, no, I'll do it myself. I can just copy the link and paste it in my own email program and send it out. Once I've copied the link, I'm going to actually head over to a different browser, one that I'm not logged into Creative Cloud with. This is Safari. I'm just going to paste that link in. So I'm simulating what the other person would get who got this link, because I'm not signed in. So without doing anything, they're looking right at the file immediately. They're thumbing through it immediately. They didn't have to create an account, sign up, have an Adobe ID, do anything special. They just get the link and start looking at it. Now, if they want to make comments, then when they click into the comment field, well, we don't want spam. We want to know who it is that's making the comment, so that's when they would put in a name and an email address. But other than that, that's the only thing they have to do. They can get information about the file. They can see when the file was created, how big it is, what fonts it uses that are part of Typekit. And they can even download the swatch library that was generated automatically. So if they want to use those colors in other projects, that's just an added bonus that you get that swatch library there. And they can download it and start using it. All right, let me go back to, wrong place. Let me go back to my other files. I want to show you one that I did share and I started getting comments on. So let me go back here, and here, and here, and here's the Photoshop file. So this is a PSD, not a JPEG, and of course it has layers. It generated the swatch library, again, automatically, and I can go see the comments that were left. I can see that this is the current version, which, by the way, going forward, this will do versioning. So you'll be able to go back to a previous rev if you've made a mistake and just have it make that one active or current. And because it's a layered file, I actually get layers in the web browser. So the client or myself would be able to turn layers on and off without having Photoshop, without having to have the file, without having to do anything else, just to see how this file was built. So that is the file area. Now you might ask, well, if I don't have access to the desktop syncing yet, how do I actually get files in here? That's a good question. Let's go find out. Let me go to a file here. And I'm going to go to, let's go actually here. Let me go grab, let's go grab the Illustrator file. So I'm going to take this map and drag it in. Notice I can drag right into the browser. When I drag right into the browser, it will begin the upload process. And depending on the speed of your internet connection, which I'm not sure how big that file is.
While you're waiting, who did the portrait?
Who did the portrait of me? Actually, it was a gift, and she won't tell me. But yeah, it was a designer who did that, or had it done. She didn't actually do it, but I don't know who did that. All right, well, we're not going to wait for that to finish, but that is how you would upload a file. We'll come back to it later. Let's go back to the files. Ooh, no, stay on the page. Don't do that. Yes?
I have a question as far as the cloud. How many different servers are my information on, is my information on? So in the event that one server goes down.
We're actually using Amazon. So Amazon's hosted services. How many of our servers they have in their server farm? All right, a gazillion. So next, let's head over and take a look at the actual apps while we're waiting for that to upload. So let's head over to Photoshop. Any Photoshop users in the audience? Few of you. So I'm going to start off with something simple. I want to remove the backpack left on the ground from the ground. Now, you know, I've always said it, one of my favorite tools is the patch tool. And the patch tool in, I believe, CS6 got content aware. And it's still content aware in CC, but the content aware has been improved. So, for example, I can take a complex, the selection's not so complex, but the background is. And I can take that and just simply move it to something like that and just have it work. So here, let me undo it. Maybe here. All right, so that's gotten a little better. Here's a new one, completely new. Well, actually not completely new, completely revamped. So, as a designer, you probably have people walking up to you all the time saying, hey, I've got this picture, I need it to be the size of this wall. Here, let me get it out of my wallet. And they hand you this really tiny picture that they want you to blow up to be something much larger. And of course, you cringe because it's just going to fall apart. It's going to lose quality. It's going to be blurry. It's just not going to hold up well. And third parties started coming out with utilities and special plugins just to do upsampling, just to make things small things larger. So the Photoshop team thought, why should you have to pay extra for a plugin to do something that we should be doing better? So if I go to image size now, I'll get some new choices. First of all, it defaults to being on automatic, so it will just make the best choice for you. But I'm going to show you the before and after. Actually, let's do this. Let's pull that out. And let's duplicate that to a new window. To new. There we go. So now I've got these, and I want to view these. And what do I want to do? I want to arrange these and tile them to a vertical. Oh, not those two, though. Screw that up. There we go. All right, so I've got, here, oops, make them the same size. All right, so I've got before and after. So I'll do the before on the old way, and I'll do the after on the new way. Same exact sizes. So image size, and the old way was by cubic smoother. That's the one that's been there for years. And I'm going to say make it 4 times larger at 300 pixels per inch instead of 72. This is the unthinkable. This is the thing we don't like to do. Click OK, and it will do it. It will do an okay job, but it's really going to be soft in the areas that used to have detail. So let's go back to this one now and do the exact same thing. Image size, but instead of by cubic, we're going to do preserve details for an enlargement. And again, if I don't know those, just put it on automatic and it will pick it for you. But anyway, let's go 400 at 300 and click OK. And let your eyes decide. Can you see the difference? So just better upsampling all the way around. All right, next, let's close that. And let's go to, I've lost my order here. Let's go to this. To my untrained eye, I'm thinking it's a little blue. Could be wrong. Actually, my trained eye is telling me it's really blue. So this is a typical white balance situation. White balance is off. And this is one of those I've never understood it, because Photoshop has always had ways to fix this. You know, levels and curves and all these, what I call complicated ways to do it. More complicated than they need to be. But Camera Raw has always, and Lightroom have always had a really easy way to do it. It's one eyedropper, click on something that should be white, gray, or black, and it fixes it. So I'm thinking, why doesn't Photoshop proper have that same white balance tool? Now I don't care anymore, because I can access that tool in Camera Raw much easier than I ever could before. Now, if I wanted to access this in Camera Raw before, I'd have to close it first, go to File, Open, choose it again, and tell it specifically to open in Camera Raw. So it's a multi-step process to get this back open. Now that it's open, it doesn't have to be a RAW, JPEG, or TIFF anymore. It could be any layer, because now for the first time, I've got the ability to use Camera Raw as a filter. Before I do that, though, I'm going to give you one tip that I would definitely tell you to use. The benefit of Camera Raw in the first place is that it's non-destructive. But if you use it right now the way it's designed, it's going to be destructive. Whatever change you make is going to be permanent, unless you do one thing first. convert to smart filters. That's what makes it non-destructive, or any of the filters that can be used this way are non-destructive. Now that I've done that, filter, Camera Raw is a filter, and now it just opens it right up in Camera Raw. I didn't have to close it down first. It didn't have to be a TIFF, JPEG, or RAW file. It could be any layer. So I could be working on a multi-layered file and say, that layer I want to do something in Camera Raw in without affecting the rest of the file. And now I just go to the white balance slider. I think the tint should be gray. Done. And I can still warm it up more or cool it off more. And I can, of course, go in while I'm here and do other things like adjust the vibrance, increase the saturation a little bit more, and work on any other things I want to work on while I'm here. But once I click OK, that's been applied as a smart filter. I can always turn it off, turn it on, or more importantly, double click and get right back to those same settings that I was messing with without having to start over again. Yes?
Can I ask you a side question? I've never been able to understand this. I always heard you talk about Photoshop, but I don't know that.
Okay?
Is there a standard for saturation, or is it you
No.
change it to whatever your eye wants to be?
There's no standard for anything, even white balance. Okay, the standard for white balance is you're supposed to click on something that's 18% gray. That's the standard. That doesn't mean I'm going to like it. So the standard still becomes what my eye likes. I may click on it and it's now the standard at 18% gray, but I still want it warmer. So your eye is the final judge no matter what we do here. When you look at that image on screen or look at that print, you're the one that has to be happy with it, not based on what the software says it should be. Okay, next, while we're on the same topic of Camera Raw as a filter, besides the building being slightly at a slant, what else is wrong? Right, the perspective's off. Now, Photoshop for years has had ways to straighten images. That's not a big deal, that's not a new thing. But we never had really a way to straighten and correct perspective at the same time, at least not automatically. So, once again, filter, Camera Raw is a filter. Go to the lens corrections, and now there's a new command called upright. And with upright, hang on for a second here. All right, with upright, I have the choice of automatic, but I'm not going to do that one yet. I'm just going to walk you through the manual ones, because if I do automatic, you'll never touch the other ones again. So let's do level, meaning just straighten it level it out. Vertically, okay, both at the same time. Okay, what's auto do? Great. So this was before, that's after. And you still have manual controls, but let me cancel, or actually I'll click OK on that. Let me go to the next one. This one's got a problem in a different direction. Instead of it being this, it's off that way. Would have been nice if the camera were moved over a little bit and going more dead on. A bush in the way or a bigger dog. Okay. Bigger dog in the next yard. So, filter, Camera Raw is a filter, lens corrections, and I'm just going to put it on auto. And like most auto things, it'll either be perfect, horrible, or okay. This one's okay. It could be better, and luckily, I still have manual controls. I wish I could take another step over to the left. So let's do that. Take another step over to the left. Now that created a cropping situation in the upper right-hand corner or lower right-hand corner. I don't have to get out of it to crop. I'll just scale it up a little bit. Okay. Click OK. Before, after. All right. Next. This is one of my photos. I took this up in Traverse City 2010-ish, 2011, sometime in that ballpark. I was on a landscape workshop, and we happened upon this church that was just open, but no light whatsoever. And I didn't put any artificial light in there, so it's quite dark. On your screen, it's much darker. So what I wanted to do was experiment with one of the new radial filters. So I'm going to go to, one more time, Camera Raw filter, and the radial filter, I'm still not sure how good this is going to show up on your screen. We'll try it. The radial filter lets me grab or put a radial shaped filter anywhere I want. So I want to relight this banister. I want the banister to be a little bit lighter. So I can go ahead and just click and drag out. And to my surprise, when I did that, I didn't see the, you still can't see it. I don't know what I can do because I can't make it any brighter on the projector. But there are words on the wall that I couldn't see that are there now. They were captured with the sensor data, and I'm seeing it on my screen. It's just that the projector's kind of dark. I'm kind of connected to stuff, but yeah, you wouldn't be able to see it. I've got too much stuff to disconnect. But I'll invite you to see that. Plus, it'll be on the video. You'll be able to see it that way.
Looks like you found a use for all those photos you were doing.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, you can't see it at all. Wow, it's a shame. Now, you might say, well, isn't a vignette doing that? Can't you just make a vignette that does that and darkens everything else, lightens the center? Yes, it lightens the center. You can't put it anywhere you want, and more importantly, you can't have more than one. I can pick this up and walk it around like a flashlight in the room and put this anywhere I want. And it's not just exposure. It's not just lighting. I can also change the contrast, highlights, shadows, clarity, temperature, saturation, sharpness, noise, defringing, color, so forth and so on. And of course, they can be rotated. So, I'll put another one up there. Now you can see it. Okay, cool. Just took two. So there were words on the wall that I forgot were there. So we'll just double light it. And we can still have another one, and another one, and another one. Sure. But then I'll just, might as well change exposure for a little picture at that point. But this is letting me selectively light areas that I wanted to light differently. All right, there you go. Now you can see it. And there's one more thing I want to show here. Let's go filter. Filter, camera as a filter, and another enhancement is the ability to have a non-circular adjustment brush. So for example, non-circular spot removal tool. So let's go ahead and make the brush smaller. The spot removal tool in Lightroom and Photoshop has always worked the same way. You basically click on a spot. It could be sensor dust, it could be debris in the photo, and it will just selectively go grab a spot that replaces it with. So I can just keep clicking. Oops, did too many of those. Keep clicking. I can even pick it up and tell it what to use, and I can just get rid of all the spots that way. Okay, and I can just keep doing this to my heart's content. But it was always in the shape of a circle. What if you had something that was either irregularly shaped, or you can't make a big circle because it's going to grab too much? So now you can actually use this like a brush. And it doesn't have to be in the shape of a circle anymore. And of course, you might say, well, can't you do that with spot healing brush in Photoshop? Yes, but not non-destructively. Because I can always come back to these, delete them, move them, change them, whatever I want. If I use a spot healing brush, it's baked into the file or baked into the layer.
Are you hitting a shift key or something to be able to change that?
Not hitting anything, just picking them up and moving them.
I mean, to change the shape.
Just drag it. Not holding down any keys. All right, and next. I think we'll do this one next. So, does it look familiar? Out of focus? We've all been there. The difference is the pros in the room never show them. They just delete them. But we all take them. Now, there's two ways that that could be out of focus. The flower is moved, or the photographer's camera moved. So the problem this next thing addresses is the latter. If the object is perfectly still, but you had camera shake, or something moved with you, there is now shake reduction in Photoshop. And the best part is it's automatic. So filter, sharpen, shake reduction. Just let it go. Done. Smart engineers built algorithms in this. So it's even showing me what direction the camera shook in, which it kind of looks like a little blur in the middle. But that's before, that's after. Now I can show it to you on a more complex image if you're interested in seeing it.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. All right, let me show it to you on a more complex image.
Does this have the ability of being able to correct for a bad lens?
If the bad lens shook, yes. Yes.
That doesn't count if it's out of focus.
No, out of focus is out of focus. This is camera shake. That's why I said it's a very specific thing. All right, now, here's a more complex image. And what I mean by that is there's motion going on that should be going on, and motion going on that shouldn't have been going on. The waterfall should be moving. The camera is on a tripod in the stream. The rocks should be perfectly sharp because they're not moving. But it's on a long exposure to give the water that nice cloud mist-like look. But if a wave or something shakes that tripod just for a split second, everything's out of focus at that point. So let's go ahead and take a look. Filter, shake or sharpen, shake reduction. And the first thing it's going to do is pop up and start analyzing the photo. And I can pick that up and move it around, by the way, and say, analyze it right here, if you think that's going to do a better job. But let me show you what it did. Let me show you the before and after. Once it's done. It's done. Hit the Q. That's before. That's after. Before. After. Now, camera shake can affect multiple areas of the photo differently, depending on which way the camera moved and turned and twisted and did whatever else. So you're not limited to just one blur estimation, which is this box. You can make the box bigger, by the way. You can also draw more. You can say, I want you to analyze that spot in the photo too, to make a better shake reduction. And if I'm right, sometimes I am, but not in the same way. So the camera in this area, the shake went a little bit up to the right versus in the original area where it didn't go as much into the right. So different areas of the photo are affected differently because of the lens and what it was focused on. So now if I again hit the letter Q to go back and look at that, before, after. Didn't make that much of a difference, but it made a difference, ever so slightly. So now my rocks are in focus, but everything else is still out of focus the way it should have been with the long exposure. Right. Now you can continue drawing more regions and see if it's going to make a difference, but you're going to reach a point of no return where it's just you're wasting time, processing time doing it.
Also depending upon how the length of the focal length of the one that you have, because if it's longer than that, it's going to wobble a lot more.
Right. Okay, let me show one more thing for my designers in the room. I want to go to this this and this. All right, this is more of an update for people that use Photoshop for more than just photography. They use it for design. So this entire piece was designed in Photoshop with layers, of course, and in some cases vectors. So if I go to my selection tool, I can select this vector rectangle that was used as part of this design. Now, Photoshop has had shape tools now for the last 3 or 4 versions. And those shape tools, though, were very limited. Meaning if you drew a rectangle today and you decided tomorrow that that should have rounded corners, what did you have to do? Delete it and draw a new one because you had no way to change it after the fact. Now with the new properties panel, I can select that rectangle that I drew yesterday and I can say, you know what? I would love for those corners to be rounded. Just drag and round them. And I can unlink it and say that I don't want that corner to be rounded at all. And I can say that I want it to be a little thicker. And I want it to have a different pattern. And I can come back tomorrow and change it again. So just better enhancements to the shape tools for those that are using this for design work. All right, next let's head over to Illustrator. Actually we'll do this one, we'll come back to that one. Let's do this one first. Let's head over to, so we have this road here. And I love to make that road look a little bit more organic, like it's part of the map. So I'm going to switch views. Just switch over to a different artboard. And in this artboard, I've got something I placed as a bitmap. So Illustrator is primarily for vector work, but of course, for years you could place photos in it. You could place bitmapped images. But the bitmapped images were kind of limited, meaning they were there, they would print, you could scale them, but you really couldn't do a lot more with them. Now we can create custom brushes with those bitmapped images. So for example, sometimes it's easier for me to use a photograph than to draw something or trace something. So I want to make a brush out of that branch. So I place it, embed it, because brushes have to be embedded so that it doesn't have to keep track of a link to a file. Go to the brushes panel. I've already got one there, but I'll make a new one. Grab this bitmap, drag it in. It's going to pop up and ask me, well, what kind of brush do you want to make it? I want to make it an art brush, and I want that brush to only scale that part. Don't scale the leaves. Leave the leaves alone. Just scale this part between the guides. So now that I've done that, I'll click OK. I'll grab my brush tool, with that brush selected, and now I can do things like that. Cool. So artwork like this just got a lot faster and easier. So now we'll switch back to the road view. Go to my layers. Somewhere in here I have a road layer, I believe. Maybe. Yep, I see it. I don't know which one I want though. There we go. Turn that layer on, and you can see how that might be used. Now, I'm not happy with the color of this banner. I'd like to change it to something, but I'm horrible at picking colors. So, how many of you have heard of Cooler, K-U-L-E-R? Cooler.adobe.com has been around for years. It's a free site. You can go and create custom color themes. And more importantly, you can see other themes that other people have created and use them and download them and use them in your applications, all free. But the Cooler team did something special. They came out with a new app that's also free. So if you have an iPhone, you can bring up the Cooler app, and you do the same thing you do on the website, which is nice, but that's no big deal to me. I don't really care. That's great to be able to do that. I could even go in and grab the RGB values and grab the hex if I'm doing web, but that's not important to me. What's important to me is that I'm doing this on my phone, which has something my computer doesn't do as easily. It has a camera. And that camera will auto-detect the colors around me. And I can use it to sample colors that I see out and about that I may want to use in my designs. So I kind of like those colors. I can freeze it, by the way. Oh, I didn't want to freeze it that way. Let me trash that one. Go back to the camera. I can tap to freeze. I can then pick them up and say, I want some of that color, some of that color, some of the white in his shirt, some of the red in his shirt, and what else do I want? I think that will do it. I like the red, and maybe instead of that, we'll get some of the blue or gray, whatever color that is in your shirt. So now that theme is there, I can tap on it. I can give it a name, so we'll make it the MGD theme. I can turn it on public so other people can search for it by name. If I said, hey, I created a new theme called MGD, go download it. And I can save the changes. So now that theme has been saved, but more importantly, it's been synced to the cloud. Now, before we leave the phone and go back to the computer, let me show you an upcoming app. Now, the Cooler app's available on the App Store right now. You can go download it, it's free. But one that's coming is the Creative Cloud app. So let me go ahead and launch that. This will give me access to my Creative Cloud files, the same ones we just saw on the website, including that map poster that looks like it's either done or about to be done. No, not done yet. All right, so let's move down. Well, maybe it's just refreshing. Yeah, but it's not. I'm waiting for the preview. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Waiting for the preview. All right, but anyway, let's scroll down and let these come in. So there's that InDesign file, and I'm tapping on an InDesign file on my phone, and of course seeing the thumbnail, which is nice, but I can see more. I can actually thumb through the pages of an InDesign native file on my phone. And from here, I'd be able to share it with others without having to get back home to do it. And I'd be able to see the comments that were made and posted to Behance right from my phone without having to go back home to do it. So that is in the coming soon category. All right, now let's get back to the computer. And in the computer, while I was out, I go to the Cooler panel in Illustrator, refresh it, and there's my MGD theme that I just captured while I was out and about. So I select that banner and use the burgundy that I like better. That's the cloud part of Creative Cloud, the stuff that works behind the scenes. Or I could use that color, or that color, or that color. Actually, that color's not bad either. All right, one more thing in Illustrator. We have this type. If I grab my type tool, that's a word I can select. I can make changes to it, fonts, colors, size, scale, stroke, all the stuff you're used to. But what if I wanted the letter I to be rotated and shifted up? What would I have to do? Break it apart. I have to cut the letter I out, put it in its own frame, and I can do whatever I want. And if I want to do something to the C, same thing. Cut the C out, put it in its own frame, do whatever I want. But instead of doing that, now there is a new tool called the Touch Type tool. So without having to break it up, I can now click on individual letters and scale them, rotate them, pick them up and move them around, distort them, make them skinnier, kern them, distort, make that thicker, make that more rotated, and pick it up and move it. And I think I want to move this down now, without having to break it up. And it's still the word, oops, still the word cliffs. So I can still make a global change to it if I want. And if I want to change the individual characters, I can. And they will keep their attributes. So that is the touch type tool. Now, why is it called touch type? Yes, I'm doing this with a mouse or a stylus, but if you have a touch-enabled display, like the Wacom Cintiq, or the, if you're on a Windows machine, Windows Surface Pro, you could actually use your fingers to do this. So it's touch-enabled on a touch device.
So this would be discoverable as text.
Yes, it is still text. All right, that's touch type. Heading over to InDesign. So InDesign got something this time around that Illustrator got the last time around. Illustrator CS6 was a complete rewrite from the ground up. It took years to do it. Starting from scratch. Go build Illustrator again. That's what the team had to do. So starting with a blank slate, go recode the whole program. And you're laughing because you're a developer. And that's never fun. That's not a, ooh, I can't wait to get to work tomorrow to write more lines of code from scratch. But it had to be done because Illustrator celebrated its 25th birthday not long ago. So it's 25 years old, it was time to start over again. And of course, by starting over again, it got all the new bells and whistles. It's decarbonized, as programmers like to call it, or COCO enabled. 64-bit, all the new engines under the hood. So making it a much better Illustrator going forward. So that's what Illustrator got in CS6. Guess what InDesign got this time around? CC. A rewrite from the ground up. So InDesign, not 25 years old, but certainly over 10 years old. Same thing. Starting with, and it was already on a fairly modern code base. But again, it needed to be decarbonized off the old platform. Taking advantage of all the RAM you can have now instead of being limited to just 4 gigs. And of course, it got, not in addition to the speed enhancements that come naturally with that, it got the new darker UI, just like Illustrator did and Photoshop before it and the video products before it. So the darker UI is not just a visual thing. It is nice to be able to make the UI lighter or darker for the whole program. But also InDesign, like Illustrator, like Photoshop, got Retina support. So if you're on a Retina display on your Mac, it got thousands of new icons. For every little button, every little thing you see had to be redrawn from scratch. Add the darker UI, each one had to be redrawn from scratch 3 or 4 times for each shade. So not a fun task. But Photoshop got it, Illustrator got it, now InDesign got it. So that's where most of the work for this version of InDesign went in, but they still got in a few new features along the way. So I like, someone asked me on an interview what my favorite new feature of InDesign was, and I had to think for a minute, and I like to think of my favorite features are not necessarily just the wow ones, but the ones that are going to impact my daily work, like the ones that are going to just speed up every time I use the program, that feature is going to come in handy. So every time I'm using InDesign, I'm putting type in. Because if I'm going to do just photos, I'm going to be in Photoshop. If I'm going to do illustration, I'm going to be in Illustrator. So I'm using InDesign to mix type and photos together. So every time I go to the font menu, it would be nice if there were some improvements. So let's see what they are. Type tool, select this text. The type menu does what it always did. It shows you what font you're in. Shows you what font that text is. Great. Now, what happens if you click up there and start typing, like you always did? Changes to closest to what you typed, right? So if I start typing H-E-L, it'll probably jump to Helvetica. because that's the closest thing I could type. But what if you typed BOLD? Right, but what would it jump to? Nothing, because you don't have a font that starts with the word bold unless it's Boldini or something, I don't know, but what if you're looking for bold fonts? So now this is not just a jump to the closest font by name, this is actually a search. So if I start typing bold, it shows me all my bold fonts. And more importantly, and you can't see it because of my bad positioning, but let me move the screen over. There we go. I can arrow through and see what that looks like in all of those bold fonts. Okay? That's cool. Well, if it does it bold, then it must do italics, right? And it must do heavy. Let me see all my heavies. And it must do medium. Show me all my medium fonts. So really anything you type. Okay, that's useful. Let's get out of it for a second. Now let's just pop the menu down. Notice how there's a little arrow now in front of the families. Now the families are grouped together. So instead of that taking up 6 spots in the font menu, it only takes up 1 until you twirl it down to see the other ones. And of course, you're still seeing the samples and what font type they are. But notice some of them have stars, or they all have stars next to them. Some of them have the stars darkened in. So if I go in and I see a font that I like, and I click the little star in front of it, I have now designated that as one of my favorites. And I can say, show me just my favorites. Show me the fonts I like the most, and what they look like in the word that I've highlighted. And why is Warnock Pro separated from the rest?
Because it's being used.
Nope. Close. Recently used. Instead of you having to scroll down the font menu every time you're looking for that font you just used, your recently used fonts will be at the top now, even in the regular font menu. So if I go here and go to type, my recently used fonts are at the top.
Do they still also appear in their normal order?
Of course.
Is that recently used as far as over a series of files that you've created, or just within that file?
Good question. The question is it recently used for this document or all documents?
That's better.
I don't know. I've not looked to see if we can create, oh here, let's create a new document. And grab the type tool and go to the type menu. I don't know if that's recent. It's recently used for everything.
Well, that's recent, that's within that session, you have to close it.
But I have closed and open, meaning I quit out of InDesign and I launched it today and those fonts were there. I didn't just use them just
It's
now.
persistent.
Right. So, it is not document specific. Okay, so recently used fonts, favorites, searching, group by category, or group by family, I should say. And Illustrator got 90% of that. So Illustrator CC has most of those features. It doesn't have the favorites, and I think it doesn't have there's 2 of them it doesn't have. I can't remember what the 2 are. But Illustrator got most of those enhancements. All right, next. I see a URL here for the website that's on this brochure, and that's common. You see URLs on brochures all the time. But I don't want them to have to type in that long URL. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. So just cut it out, put it on the clipboard. And I've got a frame here that instead I want them to scan a QR code to take them right to that website from their phones. We did this last month. We went to a website and got a QR code generator and downloaded a file and we could put in InDesign. Or I go to Object, Generate QR Code right in InDesign as a new feature. When I do that, I get my typical QR code types. So web hyperlink is the one we're going to use. But I could also say make it plain text, meaning when they scan the code, this text appears on their phone. Make it a text message, so when they scan the code, it will prompt to send a text message. He just got one. Or she just got one, sorry. And email, I could have it email whatever the message is, to whoever I want it to be emailed to from that person. And business card. So when they scan the code, it will basically provide them with a contact that they can add directly to their contacts. But we want web hyperlink, so let's go ahead and paste in that URL for this. And we also can pick the color. Done. Now that code is an object. So it can be scaled, it can be copied, it can be pasted in other programs. So I can select that, copy it, head over to Illustrator, make a new document, paste it right in, and of course it is white, so that's not really going to help me much. Let's change it to a different color. There we go. And deselect it. And now there's my QR code. And it's vector, so it's infinitely scalable, and you have all the pieces as well. So some people are taking these pieces out that don't matter to the code and substituting a graphic in. So you can now go in Illustrator and customize yours. Test it first to make sure it still works after you mess with it. Then you shouldn't do it. All right, next, that is one last thing for InDesign for people that are doing ebooks. File, let's see if I've got one here. I think I do. Travel guide, final. Just lots of ebook enhancements, but the biggest one that people seem to really like is InDesign has had, I think pretty much since day one, a an index feature. Yes, it's had table of contents too. But an index feature where you go through your document, highlight words, say included in the index, and when you're done, you can say generate index and it will build the index for you. And that index has traditionally been hyperlinked in PDFs and so forth and so on. But it was ignored in EPUBs until now. So now when you say export this out as an EPUB, let's see, do I already have one? Yeah, I already have one. All right, so I can say export it as an EPUB, and when I do that, it will prompt me with all the settings, images, advanced, all the CSS, all the new stuff it can do. But more importantly, here, let's see if I can go open that one. And InDesign, travel guide, EPUB, there it is. When I open up that EPUB and go through the pages and get to the end, there we go, it's all hyperlinked and ready to go. So I can jump around from that index that I took the time to build in InDesign in my EPUB document as well. So automatic, don't have to do anything extra.
Can you play on the computer now?
I'm on the computer, yes.
No, I thought you couldn't read EPUBs or is that just a matter?
EPUBs, that's the whole benefit of EPUBs. They work on any device as long as you have a reader. So this is Adobe Digital Editions, which is a free download, which is an EPUB reader.
What was the program?
Adobe Digital Editions, a free download from adobe.com. So my EPUB is here and working with the index that was built by InDesign. All right, that's EPUBs and that's InDesign. Let's head over to Adobe Muse. So Muse has been like the whole star of this Creative Cloud model because it started out as a subscription-only product back last year. And of course, it's been getting those regular updates along the way. And it just got an update back in February, and it's now June, or about to be July. And it also got a new update for CC. So I've done a Muse demo here before, so I'm not going to really start from scratch. But Muse is the web design tool for designers, people that want to create websites but don't want to have to write the code to do it. So it's creating websites without having to write code. So let's take a look at the top new things in Muse CC. First of all, let me show you a site that we're going to look at that was built with Muse. Let's go here, and let's go here, and here. So this site is live on the web right now. If you want to go take a look at it, it's thewildisles.com. And this site is just a sample site that was built with Muse. It's got layers that I can scroll through. It's got a new parallax or scroll motion effect, so the leaves are scrolling at a different pace than the rest of the images. Of course, we've got links. We've got a log, which is one of the new features is that there's client-side editing of the Muse site now with just a web browser. So you're the designer, you build a site, client pays you, but you want to give the client the ability to make simple changes to text and images. You can now enable them to do that, and all they need is a web browser. So, and there's one caveat. The site has to be hosted with your hosting with Adobe, so for that feature to work. Muse sites can be hosted anywhere, but if you want to use the in-browser editing feature, that site does have to be hosted with your Business Catalyst. All right, but anyway, there we go. And lastly, contact forms, which we had before. And contact forms used to be tied to Business Catalyst, but they aren't in this version anymore. So now you can use the contact form feature no matter where you host your site. Whereas before it required Business Catalyst on the back end, now it uses PHP. So let's go take a look at how some of this was built. And let me look at my time here. Okay, I gotta wrap this up in less than 20 minutes. All right, let's start with the home page. I'm gonna zoom out. I want to put that rotating slideshow here that we saw earlier. So I could use a slideshow, but slideshows in Muse are for images. I want this to be images and text. So I'm not going to use the slideshow. Instead, I'm going to use one of the compositions. I'm going to use the tooltip composition. Just going to drag it out onto the page. And when I drag it out onto the page, I get the options for it. So I'm going to turn on the first option. Instead of scattered, meaning the pop-ups could be anywhere, I'm going to make them all stacked. Secondly, I'm going to control, I do want fading, and I want the transition to be 4 seconds long instead of a half second, and I want it to auto-play every 6 seconds, and I don't want to hide all initially, so I'll turn all that off. Now that I've done that, I can pick this up and put it anywhere I want. And I can get rid of the sample content that was in it. So let's go in and click, click. I just keep clicking till I drill down to that content, delete it. And while I'm on the hero frame, I'm going to say that it has no stroke and the corners are squared instead of rounded. Okay, and now I just go to the next target and do the same thing. No sample content, and no stroke, and the corners are squared. And the last one, same thing. Get rid of the sample content, and the corners are squared, and there's no stroke. All right, now that I've got all 3 of those done, and these dots are just the triggers that let you go between them, I'm going to take the triggers, select them all, and pull them down. They don't have to be in the same spot. I'll just pull them down to the bottom. And actually, I should probably center them. There we go. And let's pick up this hero frame and center it as well. And let's make sure we're on the first one. We are. All right, I'll click on this one, and now I'm just going to make this bigger. So I'm going to, I don't have enough screen resolution to do it. There it is. Width and height, we're going to make this 1700 pixels wide by whatever. I'll drag it down because I don't remember the number. Let's pick it up and move it over. And let's just simply scroll this back and make my window smaller again. Okay, now that I've got that, I'll just go ahead and pull it down because again, I don't remember the height number. Just pull it down. Okay, so now I've made my giant frame for my content. Now I could place the content in it, but I want to actually use the frame as a frame. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to be filled with that first image. So I'm going to fill it with the landing page slideshow number 1. And I'm going to scale it to fit, or scale to fit. There we go. But now that image is like help me out. Not banner. No, that's good. Panorama, thank you. It's like a panorama, so it's very long. But that gives me space for the bottom stuff that I'm going to do. So let me go grab the stuff that I need. It's actually in a page on the site that I'm not using for the site, just as a placeholder. Let me go grab the content. And I want to use this text, copy it, go back here, and paste it. All right, so that's my first one. Now I'll click on the second one and do the same thing. Select the frame, fill it with a different graphic, go grab the second graphic, and scale this one to fill. And let's zoom out a little bit so we can see what that looks like. Okay, and go grab our text that goes on that, which is this one. Select all, copy, paste, and put that anywhere I want. So this is the first one. This is the second one. Oops, I'm not clicking on it. Second one. Go to the third one. And the third one, grab that frame, fill it as well with an image. Go find the image, which is my third graphic, and scale that to fill. And center it. Now that I've done that, just go grab the text for it, which is at the top, copy, paste, and put that text anywhere I want in it. So that is my slideshow, but I want 2 more things to happen. First of all, I want this whole slideshow on a layer, which is another new feature of Muse CC. So I have a new layers panel. And on the layers panel, instead of it being on the leaves layer, I'm going to make a brand new layer called slideshow. Now that I've made that new layer, I'm going to pull that layer down to the bottom and put that slideshow on it just by dragging the dot down to that layer. Why can I not do that? Oh, it would help if you select it first. There we go. So now it's on the slideshow layer, so if I turn the slideshow layer on and off, it's gone. Last but not least, I don't want it to move when the page is scrolled. I want it to be pinned to the top. So luckily, pinning is an easy feature. Just select it, go up here to the pin option, and pin it to the center and to the top. So that means it stays in place. So now it's on a layer below. It's a slideshow that plays automatically. It's below everything else, and it's pinned to the top. So File, Preview Page in Browser, renders out the HTML on the fly, opens it up in my default browser. 6 seconds later, that slide should change, and it did. And now, if I scroll, it stays in place, and the content scrolls up over it, because it's on a layer below the other content. And because it's pinned to the top, it didn't move up with everything else. All right, next. So you got to take a look at a couple things. Let's do parallax scrolling, or scroll motion. So let's go to the next page, fly. And I have a leaf here. I'm just going to go delete it, because I'm going to put another one there. And actually, I'm going to move it down a little bit. File, place, just like InDesign. Go grab my leaves here. Pick whichever one I want. I'll use that one this time. Place it wherever I want. There it is. Pick it up, move it wherever I want. And if I don't do anything, when I preview this page, it's just going to sit there. It's not going to move. So I want it to move differently, in a different direction than the scrolling. So I go to the effects while that leaf is selected, click effects, and there's a brand new panel called scroll motion. I just turn on scroll motion and it will put in a default keyframe. I'm not going to worry about where it is right now, I'll fix that later. What I want to worry about is what happens before and after that keyframe. So before the keyframe, I want it to scroll down at a rate of 2 and across at a rate of 0, which means don't go across. And after the keyframe, I want it to scroll up at a rate of, let's say, 1.8, the scroll speed, and across at a rate of 2. So go down and then that way. So down and shoot off. So now the next thing is, where will that start? This is why I didn't worry about the number, because I can pick this up and move it wherever I want. So I can position that keyframe wherever I want this to happen. And I want it to happen right around the word canopy. So File, Preview, Page in Browser. And scroll, and there's canopy, and there's my leaf, and shoots off to the right. So you create whatever objects you want to scroll and go with scroll motion. All right, next. For the sake of time, let's jump to the last couple things here. Let's jump over to, well here, while I'm in the browser, let's go back to Safari for a minute. Remember, Safari is the browser I'm not logged in on anything. And I'm going to go to my history here. There it is, Admin Console. This is the hardest password in the world for me to remember. Not remember, but type. Yeah, it's hard, getting those dots in the right order. All right, what I just did is I went to the browser where I'm not logged in as Creative Cloud. Remember, Safari is not logged in. And I logged in as that other Terry White. Because this is not a Creative Cloud member, and that other Terry White was designated as the client to be able to edit the site. So I can go to Edit. I can see the site that the designer built for me. I can click on any object that's enabled for me to edit. Here, let me go down. So for example, I'd click on Log, and I can say, actually I don't want to change Log. I can click on Read the Latest, and I can change that to Read the Best. And I didn't have to worry about the font, the size, the scaling, the kerning, the color, the style sheet, or anything else. Because I'm just editing in a browser as the user. I don't like that leaf anymore. I click on that leaf, pick a different object from the site, or more importantly, go from my computer and upload a new leaf. And we'll go there, and here. So this is the in-browser editing feature for your clients to be able to update their own sites. And cropping's not great, but there it is. And the parallax scrolling still works. So I'd probably pick a different design for that because I can't change anything else. I mean, a different object. Here, let's do that. That's bugging me. From my computer, pick one that works better. All right, that one is going to have to be. There we go. And the parallax scrolling doesn't work. So I can't wreck anything. I can't make any bad changes. I can make bad changes. But I can make whatever changes I want without destroying the site itself. And I can edit even the navigation, what it says, or click it to navigate to that page to be able to edit it. But that's the in-browser editing feature. Now let's head back to Muse for the last thing. And I'm in the sign up page where I want to use a contact form. So I can go back to the widgets, forms. The BC is gone. There used to be a little BC on the right of these, meaning they had to be used with Business Catalyst. That is no longer the case. I can now just drag a detailed contact form right onto the page and pick that form up. move it around, and pick who it's going to go to. me@me.com. That's who the form will actually go to. I can add another field if I want. And that field I just added is called custom. I could go change that to whatever I want. Which tour are you interested in? And I have to make that frame bigger. And probably a lowercase n for being picky. All right, and of course, I don't like the way that looks, so let's go ahead and alter it. Let's pick up the new custom field I just made and move that up here. Smart guides are keeping me nice and aligned. Pick up the message area, move that up here, and grab the text or the frame for that, make that bigger, and then find my submit button, put that anywhere I want, and I can change the font, size, color of any of this. Last but not least, they want the map of the location here, and I don't have time to go draw it in Illustrator. Matter of fact, they want the map to be interactive, and I don't have time. I definitely don't have the time or skill to do that. So there's a company that makes great interactive maps for us. It's called Google, maps.google.com. And that's for the Hilo Forest Reserve in Hawaii. So I can navigate to that map in Google, zoom in on it, position it where I want, kind of get it set up the way I want it to look, choose whatever style I want to start with, grab the link, customize the embed code to make it a different size, like 768, and make it a height like 418. And once I get it looking the way I want, just simply select all that code and copy it, head back over to Muse, Object, Insert HTML, paste that code in that I got from Google, wait for a couple seconds, and there's my map that I can now put on my site. And when I file preview this page in browser, since that map is being served up by Google, there's my contact form ready to fill out and submit. And here's my map that I can still interact with, zoom in on, switch to satellite, switch to terrain, and use it like any other Google map, but it's now on my site. And that's Adobe Muse. Yes?
The first thing you have with the pictures, can you do video?
Muse does not have built-in video support, but there's nothing stopping you from embedding a YouTube, Vimeo, or any other kind of video.
Okay, also, does it have HTML5 dynamic capabilities for, like, it'll change for iPhone format and different formats that you're looking at?
It is not responsive design, but it is layout optimized. So part of the thing I would show you had I had time would be we would now go build the phone version of this or the tablet version of this. And I would say copy the desktop site plan, click OK. There's my phone layout ready to go. I can delete the stuff I don't need, such as that. I would then go to the pages. I don't need that page either. I would then go to the master page, get that ready, and from here, I would go back to my sample content that I already have built, waiting for me, ready to go, to the mobile pieces. I would grab this, copy it, go back to the master page for the phone, paste it in, place it in the right spot, and then I would ungroup it. And I would make sure these aren't footers anymore. And make sure that that still is. Great. So now that should take care of all the phone background pages. And then I would just begin to build the content out that I want that's more mobile phone optimized. So for example, for the home page, copy that, go to the home page, paste that in, but I want that slideshow. That slideshow is kind of cool. So let's go back to the slideshow on the desktop page, select the whole thing, copy it. What problem am I going to run into? It's huge. Zoom out, because it's going to be big. Paste. A little bit big for a phone. I'm just guessing. But I did some things that will help me out. So first of all, let's go to the first frame of that. I don't need the text because the text is going to be served up on, oops, I didn't mean to delete the whole thing. Because the text is going to be served up on other pages. But I do need the hero frame to be smaller. But because I did a fit, oops, it will, oh, that's right. I need to go back and delete those other ones first. Let's go do that. Get rid of this first. And then get rid of this. There we go. Now I can go scale that. And it will optimize the images for this new size. And I can pick up these triggers and move them way up here. Where they go. And so now when I preview this, it will show me a default preview for iPhone 4. And I probably need to fix that one too. It will then rotate through the images. And I can say, show me that on an iPhone 5 layout, show me that on a Samsung Galaxy S3 layout, show me that on a Nokia Lumia output as well. So it is not responsive, it's build the layouts for the devices. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question about InDesign CC. Are you able to save down to CS6?
You're able to save down to CS6, CS5, and CS4 with InDesign CC. So InDesign had traditionally only done one version back. It always did one version back. But starting with CS6, it started going 2 versions back, and CC now goes 3 versions back.
Does Lightroom inherit any of the new camera raw features from CC?
Does Lightroom inherit any of the new camera raw features from CC? Lightroom develop module is always camera raw, but better because it has previews. So whatever you see in camera raw, you will always see in Lightroom. So it's the same. So whatever I can do in camera raw, I can do in Lightroom.
Publishing from Muse.
Yep.
Do you have to publish to Adobe, or can you publish to your host?
I love that question. Question was publishing from Adobe Muse. I have 3 choices. File, publish is the easy one. That's going to let me use my hosting that's included in my Creative Cloud. I don't have to think about it, it just does it. But what if you already are having hosting somewhere else? You already have a website. It's your client's website. It's someone else's website. You're making for them, and they already are paying for it somewhere else. Upload via FTP, put in the credentials, and away it goes. Make as many sites as you want, host them in many places as you want. Or third, I don't know what I want to do, but I just want a folder with everything I just built as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all the things I just made. Go make an HTML folder for me. Then you can do whatever you want to do with it.
You reference HTML5. Is any of this using Flash?
None of this is using Flash unless you want to use Flash. So Muse can place a Swift file if you ever choose to.
So Flash is not a requirement on the site.
Flash is not a requirement in anything in CC except for Flash.
Since they're still, I saw they're still carrying Flash as a product. A lot of devices aren't using Flash anymore. Are they addressing that and becoming more? Is there something that changed it so it can be viewed?
Question was, I see that Flash is still available, but Flash can't be viewed on mobile devices. Matter of fact, Adobe discontinued the mobile version of Flash. So if that kind of tells you where things are headed. But let's go back here for a minute. So if I want to make animations for the web and Flash doesn't work on mobile devices, what do I use? And I use Edge Animate, which is HTML5 based and works on mobile devices. So for example, let's go back to Muse. Let's go to the zipline tour page. Let's go File, Place. Let's go grab an Edge animation that just simply says the word sale. Place that in there and preview this the way it would look on a smartphone that doesn't have Flash, by the way. And there's my sale.
Flash? Can you do videos in it and complex kinds of animations?
Is it very similar to Flash? It is probably a little bit closer to After Effects than Flash, meaning it's an animation model, it's keyframe based. It's, by the way, it's got tutorials in it, so you can download it and just run through the tutorials that are built in it. I'm not sure about the video support because I just haven't tried it or haven't looked at it enough. But yes, it's an animation tool. So go use Edge Animate to do your animations for the web.
Creative, CS6 Creative Cloud users, are they automatically upgrade to CC?
Our Creative Suite 6 Creative Cloud users automatically updated to CC. What did I say about automatic updates?
I know you said that about automatic updates.
We don't want automatic updates, so you go pick and choose which CC apps you want to download when you're ready.
Well, as a Creative Cloud 6 user,
You're a Creative Cloud member. There is no Creative Cloud 6 member.
okay, but I bought it before this came out.
You have Creative Cloud, so you can download the CC apps when you're ready.
Okay, so, but as a user, I would have expected the system manager to possibly give me like some type of notice. Nothing like that is happening.
Because the system manager is not for the new apps. That's why there's a new desktop app. And I believe it should have alerted you to download the new desktop app. If it didn't, our bad. Okay, it did for him. Your computer. I'm just kidding. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, as far as Muse is concerned, I noticed when you did the phones, are the phones that you can write to, is that because they have similar screen resolutions?
Okay, so good question. When I do these previews on the phone layouts or the tablet layouts, which by the way we can now rotate, which is kind of cool. These are screen resolutions. This isn't emulating an iPhone 4 or emulating an iPhone 5. It's just saying, hey, this is what an iPhone 4 screen resolution is. So this is what your site will look like on that size. So if I preview it in a browser, it's not really going to help me because it's going to be this little thing in the upper left corner. That's why we do the preview of mobile right in Muse, because it kind of isolates it to what that screen resolution would look like. But there's nothing device specific about the site. So it's not making it for iPhone, Android, blah, blah, blah. It's just making a mobile version that shows in these resolutions.
So if I viewed the site on a screen that was considerably smaller, it would downsize to that?
If that browser does that, yes. Depends on the browser on that device.
Is Fireworks CS6 the terminal release of that product, or will that be?
Fireworks CS6 will continue to receive bug fixes, but it is no longer receiving features. So there's no Fireworks CC, it's still Fireworks CS6.
I'm trying to understand say me and my husband want to buy the suite, but I have a desktop and a laptop, he has a desktop and a laptop. And, we have to buy 2 copies?
As you always did. Okay?
Are they phasing up Fireworks? Is that what you're implying?
Fireworks is not being revved, let's put it that way. It's still available, it's still part of Creative Cloud. If I go to the App Center, it's still there for me to download and install. It's just not getting new features. It's being superseded by new tools, basically. So you'll see new tools come out that do what Fireworks used to do. And there's a whole blog post explaining the rationale behind it.
Can you still buy Elements?
Elements has never been a part of Creative Suite and is still available separately. Just like Lightroom, still available separately. Because it was never part of the suite.
Yeah.
I can't predict the future, but right now it is separately, and there are no plans to change that I've ever heard of.
I have a question.
In the back.
On the deactivation, if I have, for example, I have I've got a Mac and PC notebook both. I can download both of them and then it'll deactivate automatically whichever one I'm on.
Well, it'll be active on 2 at a time.
Okay.
So if you're going to do it on the 3rd one, that's when you're going to get a message saying it's already on 2. It'll deactivate one of the first 2. Okay, that is it for questions. Now, before I leave, and to address one of the initial concerns that was brought up right off the bat. Creative Cloud is a new direction for Adobe. It's the biggest directional change in the company's history. It is not something that we took lightly. It's not something that we thought of overnight. It's not something that we still take lightly. Every comment, every blog post, every article, every complaint, every call, every email, every person standing up in an audience that says something about what they don't like is heard, listened to, taken note of, and considered for adjustments going forward. Like any major change, we're not saying that this is perfect or for everyone, and there will be adjustments along the way. I'm not prepared to announce what those adjustments are going to be today, but what I can say, what's been publicly said, is we're not going back to perpetual or suites. But to address the concerns like the ones she brought up earlier, there are adjustments being looked at. And as soon as they're announced, I'll be the first to rebroadcast that announcement. So, the top concerns I hear, there are 3. I don't want to rent my software. Again, all I can do is show the value, talk about it. You don't want to rent, there's nothing else I can do. 2, if I ever leave Creative Cloud, I want to be able to access my files. That's something I can do something about. Just have to figure out the right way to do it. 3, I'm a photographer and I only use Photoshop and Lightroom. Do something for me. That can be addressed. Can't tell you what that's going to be, but it's something that's addressable. Those are the 3 top things I hear all the time. Everything else is, usually myths or whatever that people just have a misunderstanding about. But those are the most, I'm not going to say the other ones aren't valid, but those are the most valid I can see. And that second one is probably the biggest.
The third one that you said, are they only focusing on those 2 products that you mentioned, or would that be on all Adobe products?
Though that community is specifically saying that. I haven't heard of any other community saying, well, I only need this and that. So that community is speaking the loudest, so they're being heard the most, I guess is the best way to put it.
I hate to make things longer, but can you bring Safari back for Windows?
Can I bring Safari back for Windows?
Yeah.
I didn't make Safari, Apple did. So you'd have to ask Apple that question.
Oh, that's right. Stupid.
That's okay, you're allowed. Okay, that is it, and we are out of time.